Hello respected viewers, I'm George from Ireland and here I am in the Italian port of Livorno because it's exactly 200 years ago since Percy Bysshe Shelley set sail from here on the last day of his life. So we're on the Gulf of La Spezia. He was planning to sail across it to another town. He was going to speak to some of his fellow British expatriates here in Italy about founding a magazine, The Liberal. Leigh Hunt and Lord Byron were involved in that. Indeed, the magazine was founded, but it foundered just a few years later. But Percy Bysshe Shelley was not to see the first edition of this magazine. The word liberal had only just come to have a political signification. Anyway, so he set sail on his little yacht with two other British men. However, they came to grief. A sudden squall was brewed up and the boat capsized, and they weren't found. So they were supposed to arrive at their destination that day, and a few hours later they still hadn't arrived, and there was growing panic. People, their friends, and Shelley's wife Mary, she travelled to nearby towns to inquire about his whereabouts, but he was nowhere to be seen. It's 10 days later their bodies washed up in Viareggio, just a little bit north of here, and they were only able to identify them by the clothes. So Percy Bysshe Shelley's body was horribly distended and had been nibbled by fish, and there was a copy of Keats's Lamia in his pocket. It's speculated that perhaps that's what killed him. He took a second when the boat was capsizing to actually put it in his pocket. Had he not, he would have been able to hold on to some driftwood, jump clear or something like that. I don't think he could swim. Most people couldn't in those days. So that was the end of him. He and the other two British men on board, they both drowned. Now, there was a rumour that went around that their boat was rammed by some local men who wanted to rob them, because they were known to be rich Britons in this area. There was a lot of poverty in this part of Italy back then. It was then the Kingdom of Sardinia. So Sardinia was both peninsular as well as insular in those days. However, the problem with that theory is none of their valuables were taken. So it's probably just unlucky, maybe poor seamanship. They say that the boat was poorly constructed, was top heavy, was in some senses a floating sarcophagus. So according to the local regulations, they had to be cremated, and their bodies were indeed immolated on the beach at Viareggio. Leigh Hunt, Lord Byron and others were there. Women did not attend, because in those days it was thought inapposite for women to attend cremations, thought to be bad for their gynecology. Anyway, the scene was so disgustful that Leigh Hunt left in the end, went and sat in the coach. There's a famous French oil painting of the scene from the late 19th century, which actually depicts Leigh Hunt looking on. And eventually Edward Trelawney, that Cornish friend of theirs, he managed to snatch Shelley's heart from the burning fire. It just wouldn't burn. It's thought to be because some sort of actually heart disorder he had. So Shelley was in somewhat poor health the last few years of his life. He died 4 weeks shy of his 30th birthday. He'd come to Italy for various reasons, partly to escape his debts, which were just unpayable. Moreover, for his health, the milder, drier climate was thought to be better for him. Of course, his younger friend, John